Kia ora and a huge welcome to our LBC community, fellow colleagues, and of course our presenter, 3 weeks strong, Tracey Hancock.
Oh, 3 weeks.
Yeah. It's feeling real solid, eh, Tracey? I'm enjoying this now. As you know, the first week I was quite nervous with all the technology and gosh, and I've got to be honest, I felt quite vulnerable having my face right there. Yeah. Feeling more comfy now, which is great. I'm Zoe Anderson. I work in Hamilton. I do the Midlands region. That's where the main office is, but we're in the corner of my lounge and we may be here for a bit longer. Tracey is a life coach and she's based in Te Awamutu, and some of you may have already heard her speak at other LBC events. Tracey teaches people practical tools and mindset strategies to navigate the twists and turns of life. And some of those may be big, and some of those might just be everyday events, or huge things like being diagnosed with a blood cancer. And obviously being in lockdown for 4 weeks with COVID-19. Tracey has faced a number of big life events herself, including being diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma in 2015. Tracey isn't just sharing theories with us today, she's sharing strategies and tools that have been well tested. Tracey guides people to greater clarity about who they are and what they value, and she teaches the skills needed to map out your next steps and empowers you to feel more confident about taking action. And all of these are key to feeling stronger and more in control. At the bottom of our screen, there is a Q&A tab. If you click on that, you can write any questions throughout the presentation. Tracey and I are both keeping an eye on that, and Tracey will answer those during our session together. Yeah. So I'm just going to pass it over to you now, Tracey, and thank you so much for being here with us today.
Well, thank you for letting me come along. Yeah, and Zoe, I think just before I go too far, I really want to acknowledge you for sharing at the start how, over the 3 weeks that we've been doing this, you're quite nervous at the start and then sort of growing in confidence and becoming more familiar and comfortable. And I just think that's such a beautiful thing for us all to realise, that when we're facing something new, it will feel a bit uncomfortable and we'll feel a bit vulnerable and it might trigger some stuff in us. But if we persist and show up and learn and do our best, then it's amazing what can come of that. So, the fact that I'm here and there's a spotlight on me, we could easily put the spotlight on you and have you talking now. And that's, just 3 weeks. So that's incredible. So I really want to acknowledge you for sharing that. And it's just such a beautiful story, I think, for people to hear, particularly if people are feeling like they can't cope, that something's new and scary and that they can't do it. And it's kind of stopped them in their tracks. I think that's really inspiring to go, I can do this. And you're an example of that. So thank you.
Thanks, Trace.
Oh, you are welcome. So we're here, and Zoe, this is by far the coldest day we've had. So if I look like I'm shivering, it's not in fear, it's just in coldness. Got to get some winter woolies out of the cupboard, I think. There's been some snow falling. So I trust that wherever you are in the country, you are warm and comfortable. If not, just, scoot around in your seat, maybe grab a jersey if you need to, but make sure you're comfy, because this time that we're together, where you're here with Zoe and I, we want to focus on sharing some things that will help you and just, I guess, bringing a little ray of sunshine into your world today, and sharing some tips, some suggestions, and answering any questions that you have. So please, as Zoe said, make sure you use the Q&A at the bottom of your screen, and you can post any question or comment, or maybe you've got something that's working for you. Please be sure to share that, because even though it's Zoe and I that you're seeing on your screens, you all have so much wisdom and so many experiences and things that you've learned, that I want you to remember that as well. So as we talk and share examples and techniques, it might trigger you to remember something that you've used in the past, and you can just bring that out now. So don't think that you got to look to us for all the answers. We're going to certainly share some information, but remember your own wisdom and experience and the tools that you already have that you may just not have been using lately. So tap into those. So let's get into our virtual bubble. I love these virtual bubbles and this whole concept because it just brings a sense of safety and comfort. Like, you know, they've got Zoe there in her lounge. I'm in my home office. I usually work from home, and you're wherever you are right now. So let's create our virtual bubble and connect in. And as I said, this is a space where we can share and learn from each other, and we can feel safe for this moment. We're here. Nowhere else for you to be, nothing else for you to do except be here now with us. So thank you for joining us, whether it's live or through the replay. So what I thought I'd do is just quickly recap on the things that we've covered so far, because I emailed Zoe the other day and just went, we have covered a lot of ground, and you know, there was perhaps some questions, maybe you missed some things. So I just want to run through a quick list. I'm not going to go into detail about them, but a quick list of what they were. And if that triggers any questions or insights for you, please share them in the chat with us. So we've talked about the power of pausing and breathing. Breathing's really important. We all do it. But that was particularly about making sure we're breathing well, breathing all the way to our bellies. And when we do that, when we feel the air going and down that far, we know that our lungs are being filled, and we're letting our mind and our body know that we're safe. We don't need to be stressed, we're safe. So we talked about the power of breathing, pausing and breathing. Acknowledge and validate your thoughts and feelings. Whatever you're thinking and feeling is right for you, is true for you. That's probably a better word. It's true for you. So just because someone says, I'm okay, it doesn't mean you have to be okay or pretend that you're okay. Acknowledge and validate your own thoughts and feelings. We talked about the power of language, and you know, Zoe gave that great example at the start where, you know, doing the first Zoom live session was a bit daunting. Now, if she'd been telling herself, oh, I can't do this, I'll never do it, I'll never learn, she would have backed right away. I can see Zoe nodding there. Like, that would have just made it really hard, almost, you know, impossible, and she might not have come back for a second. Fortunately, she did. And this is about our language going, this is new and unfamiliar. I'm going to learn. I'm going to take it one step at a time. And that's the power of understanding the words we're using. Routines and rituals. So the things that we're doing each day that help us feel strong, that help us feel calm, that help us feel confident or in control, or whatever it is you want to feel. So these are everything from, you know, exercising, meditating, journaling. Oh, I know this will be a personal favorite of Zoe's, like cooking beautiful meals. Yeah, look at the smile. So what are and it's soup and casserole stewy kind of weather now, isn't it? Might be looking out for some of your recipes, Zoe. So rituals and routines. We've talked about anxiety, and that comes from when we're worried about the future. And we talked about how to manage that. Motivation, your motive for taking action. We talked about should statements, and they can be quite common at these times when we feel under pressure, we feel stressed, we feel uncertain, and we can start to, you know, I should be doing more, I should be coping better, I should be feeling like this, I should be doing that. So we can start to really beat ourselves up with should statements. And we talked about the power of a gratitude practice, of noticing what it is we're grateful for. So I'm incredibly grateful for this opportunity to meet with you. And I know we don't get to see each other face to face. You get to see me beaming into your home. But I don't get to see you. But I am so grateful for this opportunity to connect with you in this time. So I don't know, there's probably some other things, but that from memory were the key things that we've covered so far. And I just wonder, like, you know, if anyone's got any questions, if they've tried anything, you know, whether it's worked or you're sort of going, yeah, I'm not sure about that, let us know in those comments. We're really happy to dive in and look at any of those in more detail. Okay, I'm just going to give Zoe a nod. Is there anything that you want to be adding at the moment, Zoe? No pressure, just checking
I
in.
have no questions yet, and I actually really liked you going over what we've been over the last 2 weeks, because you do forget, and when you recap like that, I'm like, that's right, yeah.
And actually, just hearing you say that too, I think we finished up the last session by talking about doing that personal stock take. Like, where are you at now? What's going on for you? How are you feeling? What are you thinking? What do you need? So the use of that personal stock take, I better make a note of that one, because that's a goodie, because that helps us tune into where we're at and what will be helpful. Okay. So I just want to share a little personal thing, because in the last few days, I've been feeling a bit out of sorts. And I wanted to share this because I think there's a danger that we think that everyone's got this all together. They're coping well, every day's a breeze, that there are people who are just unflappable. They just got this sorted. And I want to share, because a lot of the time I hear people say, but Tracey, you're a coach, nothing would faze you. And I want to just acknowledge that we're all human, and we all ride emotions and we have responses. And for me, the thing that makes the difference is having these sorts of tools in my toolkit. Because as soon as I notice I'm out of sorts, I can acknowledge it. I pause and breathe. I acknowledge how I'm feeling. I validate that. Go, yeah, that's how I'm feeling. I don't have to try and pretend to be upbeat, happy, got it all together. I'm actually, I noticed I'm a bit tired. And sometimes when I'm reading stuff, I just like burst into tears. And so what I know then is I need to double down on my self-care. I need to make sure I'm doing the things that support me well, because it's been an intense 3 weeks, eh? Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've got to notice that too, Zoe? Like, a lot going on in those 3 weeks.
Yeah. Big changes. Yeah. And what I've really noticed is my husband and I were eating our feelings for that first 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Like I felt like he was at the supermarket for us a lot, and the lists were really big, and we would cook these huge meals, enough for like a family of 4 or 5, and we'd smash it back, and so now we've just gone, actually, to look after ourselves, we can't eat like that, because that makes me feel unhealthy, and I feel sluggish, and I'm eating more like just dairy, and because I'm asthmatic, it makes me more phlegmy. So it's all these, the add-ons, Trace.
Yeah.
And so now we are getting more comfortable with our new normal, what our environment is like. So we've been able to pull some of that stuff back, where before the biscuits were just needed, but they're not needed right now.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And it's so powerful to acknowledge where we're at. And I go back to like mentioning the personal stock take, like, where are you at and what's going on? Because each day is its own day. I remember, my yoga teacher always reminds us that just because we found a pose easy yesterday, it doesn't mean it's going to be easy today, because each day is its own. And so just checking in. And as I said, I've been feeling a bit out of sorts. So, I started to look at my environment, what was going on. Well, the house had got just a little bit messy. And so I did a good clean. That definitely helped. The weather has changed and it's got cooler, and we start to kind of close in a little bit as it gets colder. So I noticed that and went, okay, so what do I need? Well, some soup might be good, and get out some winter clothes. I also realized that, because I've been talking with people who, some of our most vulnerable people like yourselves who have an illness, and I've been hearing some beautiful, amazing stories, but also some really heart-wrenching stories as well. I realized that I had just got a little bit sad. And so I just took care of myself. So this is the beauty, as I said, of having these tools in your toolkit, where you can go, I'm noticing that I'm feeling like this. What would be of use right now? And my go-to is pause and breathe, because the danger is, and I used this with a client yesterday, she was putting on her cranky pants She was getting really snappy with people and really hard on herself. So, she did the whole pause and breathe. What's going on? What are you thinking? What are you feeling? We figured out she was just getting a bit of cabin fever and just felt like she was hemmed in. So we talked about that. So just acknowledge where you're at and then go, so what do I need? So some comments coming through about, people are feeling more settled with the new normal. Yeah, because, you're sort of getting into the groove and you know what this is about. You, Matt, working from home, so, probably got into a bit of a routine with that. Equally, for some people, at this point, they might be going, oh my God, I don't know how much longer I can do this. It's becoming a bit too much. So again, what we're doing is acknowledging our own thoughts and feelings and going, this is where I'm at, and not comparing ourselves and going, oh, but that person's got it all together and they think they're doing fine. We're different people. And that stopping and checking in with ourselves, noticing what we're attaching labels to our feelings, because often feelings get labeled good or bad. Like happy is a good feeling, sad is angry is a bad feeling. They're just feelings, and if we can take the labels away, so I think this will be a really key point. If we take the labels away and we just look at the feeling, I'm feeling good, I'm feeling happy, fantastic. I'm feeling angry or sad or tired, whatever it is, that's just how you're feeling. We don't need to label them, and because the tendency is if we label them as being bad, we then beat ourselves up. And this leads nicely into a comment that we got from someone where they asked us to talk about the negative thoughts and the inner critic. Because if we start labeling our feelings as bad, we then go, oh, I'm bad and I'm not good enough. And then the inner critic. So hands up who's got one of those, and you don't need to put it in the comments if you don't want to, but yeah, I'll put my hand up. Zoe's putting hers up. Those inner critics that start to run wild, going, you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, tall enough, you've not got the right feelings. We start to give ourselves a really, really hard time. And this is where we can come back to pausing and breathing. I'm noticing I'm giving myself a hard time. Wow, why am I giving myself a hard time? So in my case, it's generally because I'm tired. And I get tired because I'm a bit stressed. So I start to look at what are those factors that have led to me being tired? What do I need to fix? And then once I start taking care of myself, the inner critic starts to quieten down. Because for me, my inner critic comes out to play when I'm tired and I'm less resourceful. So I'm not thinking nicely. I'm just going straight to an attack mode. So Zoe, you put your hand up as well. You've got an inner critic that runs a bit rampant every now and then too.
Yeah, mine is if the feeling is like I'm feeling stressed out, because I haven't worked from home before and I really want to go to the support groups. I want to see people face to face. This doesn't tick the boxes for everyone, webinars and Zoom meetings, and I'm trying my best, but I'm really struggling with it. So I feel stressed. So therefore that's a bad feeling. So I feel wrong. And then I really get into the wrong of, well, why am I struggling with this? My colleagues are doing okay. They seem to be adapting well. Why can't I adapt? Why are you so stuck in your thoughts, Zoe? What's wrong with your thought pattern? And see how I'm like spiraling with all that negative talk? And then before you know it, I just feel like I'm not giving enough to my team. I don't support my patients well enough, and all that negative stuff around work. When really I'm doing the best that I can do in a pandemic that I've never been in before, that nobody else has either. With a really supportive organisation and with like the best cohort of patients you could actually get in the country. Because, when I think about it, Trace, like our patients have done isolation, they've done the hard yards before, they've got great hand hygiene, they know how to, hunker down already. It's just us muggles who don't know how to do it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great term. Yeah. Yeah. And it is so powerful when we pause and breathe and step back and we notice the bigger picture. So if an inner critic is tending to show up and sort of settle into your mind and take up space, we want to be kind to ourselves because it's there to teach us something. Yeah, give ourselves a hug. We want to be kind to ourselves because it's there to let us know something. It's not just showing up for the hell of it. And the tendency is to go, I just got to get rid of those thoughts. Or, we get really angry and we push it away instead of going, okay, what is it trying to let me know? So when you start to describe for you that situation, you start to see, that supportive, the people out in the community with, blood cancers and their families, your colleagues. And when you start to look at the bigger picture, you can then figure out, okay, so what can I control? What can I do? And what can I let go of? Because there's nothing I can do about that. So what you're doing by acknowledging the inner critic, you're letting it know it's saying, it's like a child. So, if a child's constantly coming at you all the time, what they're wanting is your attention. They just want you to see them. And so it's the same with that inner critic. It just wants us to see it, but we don't have to hold on to it. We don't have to sit there and, invite it in to get comfortable. We can see it and go, thank you for showing up, which might sound really bizarre that we're thanking an inner critic. But if we can acknowledge it and then go, okay, well, thank you for being here. And then do a quick scan of your environment. What's going on? What's irritating me? What's really, not working for me? Am I not taking good care of myself in a particular area? Maybe I've not been sleeping or eating well, a few too many packets of chocolate biscuits or chippies, and nothing wrong with them. But if you found that that's morning, lunch, breakfast, lunch and dinner, maybe that's not so good. But if we look at our environment and go, okay, thanks inner critic for letting me know that there were some things to look at. You can now head off. I've got some things to do. So it is really important just to acknowledge it rather than push it to one side and ignore it. It's such a powerful teacher. And it takes practice, because I know for some people you'll be going, what the heck? But I strongly suspect that if in the past, when that critic turns up, when you've tried to ignore it or push it aside, things have just got worse. And you've got cranky, you've snapped at people, you've felt awful, you haven't slept well, you just haven't felt as productive. So I reckon it's worth trying. Thank you for showing up. Thank you, inner critic. Thank you for letting me see these areas where I'm, struggling or not taking care of them as well as I could be. And then make the course corrections.
Tracey, we've got a great question.
Okay.
I'm doing okay at the moment, but my partner has a friend who texts me or phones me every few days, and she is struggling, and then that makes me go into a slump.
Wow. Yeah, and this is quite common, isn't it? Because what people will be doing is protecting their own feelings. So let's say, and without knowing the person, I am guessing a little bit, but let's say that they're feeling quite fearful or quite anxious. They're going to project that out. So they might do that by reaching out, and it looks like they're reaching out to support you, but they're actually kind of reaching out because they want to be seen, they want to be acknowledged, they want to feel safe, but they don't know how to ask for that. And so what can happen is people can become quite overbearing, or they're just very prominent. They show up all the time. And so the challenge for us is we can start to take this really personally. And there's a number of different ways we can do that. One is we start to feel like they're pissing us off. They're just really annoying us. And we can start to get quite defensive. Or we can think, oh my God, maybe I'm not okay. Maybe I should be feeling something that I'm not feeling. And so we can start to doubt ourselves. So it would be interesting if you were to ask that person some questions. And the reason I'm suggesting ask them some questions is you want to maybe establish some expectations or some boundaries. And so for example, what's a question you could ask? It might be, and you're probably already doing this, you know, how are they feeling? What's on their mind? Like, use some of the techniques we've been talking about. See if we can get them to pause and breathe and to acknowledge their thoughts and feelings. Because maybe they don't have the language to express how they're feeling. So we want to empower people. And it is okay to start to set some boundaries, to let people know that those constant texts, they're not helpful, but you want to be helpful. You want to help them, but we need to do it in another way. So if we think about the techniques, pausing and breathing, acknowledging their thoughts and feelings. And if they're struggling to do that, you could use the check-in that you may have seen us use before, the 1 to 10 check-in. You could say, hey, on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is you're just feeling really overwhelmed, you're struggling, you're not sure, you're quite scared, and 10 is you're doing really okay, how are you doing today? So just come back to that point I made earlier. The danger is we personalize it and we take it all on. We either get defensive or we think we're, maybe we start to doubt ourselves. There's something else we can do. It's just gone from my mind. It'll come back. So I want you to pause and breathe and go, okay, how can I help this person? Yeah, I can see, Zoe, you're breathing there, because it's highly likely that the person is anxious or scared and doesn't know how to express that. So I wonder if you can try some techniques, ask them some questions, set some boundaries. Say, how about we check in once every few days, whatever few days might mean for you. So I wouldn't be so general and say once every few days, because they're going to go, oh, that's every day. So you might say, hey, let's chat on a Wednesday. So it's okay to set some boundaries. Sorry, was there anything in that question that I may have not covered? Just check in there.
No, that sounds good. It's just that the last bit, and it makes me go into a slump.
Yeah. And this is why it's so important to, I guess, to empower the person to find a way for them to understand how they're feeling. And look, if I can just share, there's a comment coming in on this feed. As a sick person, I get sick of people ringing every day. Yes, and that's so common, and yet people think they're being helpful, and yet again, it's coming from their own fears and their own kind of projection of how they're feeling. They think that they have to ring every day because that's what a caring person does, or they're afraid that you'll think they're not doing enough. So this is where we need to go, actually, what do I need? And let people know. So I remember, like, my dad had a heart attack, and then he had lots of big surgery. And so we set some rules as a family based on what he asked. So, he let us know that having so many visitors was exhausting, and that he asked that we come up with some rules. So we agreed some rules with him, and then he was able to rest both in the hospital and at home in a way that was better. But had he not said anything, we probably would have kept going, because we're just like, oh my God, we need to keep showing up. So if you're feeling overwhelmed with people ringing or well, be ringing at the moment, I was going to say popping around, but that won't be the case. It's okay to let people know that you appreciate their care and their concern and their contact, but you'll prefer it if it was just every few days. So it is absolutely okay to set some boundaries. And I know the word boundaries can terrify some people, because they go, oh, people are going to think I'm mean. But simply put, unless we let people know what we need or want, they're just guessing and they're going to do what they're going to do. So we can say, hey, really appreciate your care and concern. I'd like it if we just connected every few days. And in fact, if I can share a little secret, sometimes I won't answer the phone just because the phone rings. I don't answer it all the time. And it's not that I ignore people. It's just that if at that time I'm resting or I just want to be in my own space, then I don't answer the phone. Now, I might make contact with the person later, but I don't like leap up just because the phone's rung either. So you can also look at that technique. So boundaries aren't bad. Boundaries don't make you a bad person. Sharing your expectations is a reasonable thing to do. And I think particularly for people who are unwell, we need to let people know what will help us. Yeah, those are such great questions. Yeah. So the tip about the phone that I shared, and it, like with mobile phones these days, I read something many years ago that stuck with me. I got my mobile phone for my own safety and well-being, so that if I was out and about, I could make a phone call. I didn't get a mobile phone so that I could be on call 24/7 to answer whatever phone call came in. The phone is for my health and well-being, for my safety, and it's for me to set some guidelines just as it is for you. So you don't have to answer it just because it rings. Yeah. So have a think. This comes back to that personal stock take. Think about what you need and want right now. What sort of environment do you need to create so you feel strong and healthy and you're supporting your well-being? And it is absolutely okay to let people know what you need and to set those boundaries. God, that's a whole topic in itself.
It is.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's huge. So I'm just checking in to see, because I think there's a few others coming. So look at seeing people face to face. It is easier to read people and to communicate. And being on Zoom and phone can be really tiring. So you might want to put some limits around that. So just as we talked about, you don't have to pick up the phone all the time. I know, the last couple of weeks I've been doing a lot on Zoom and I found I've got really tired eyes. So now I'm doing that a little bit differently. Again, we think about what do we need? And it's okay to take action to support what you need. So that would be write yourself a permission slip. Give yourself permission to create an environment that supports you. I love that. So I don't know what the person's whole name is, but they're writing a blog every day and then use Messenger to send it out to the bubble. Oh, wow. That's fantastic. And it really does save energy, doesn't it? It means you're not having to, let's say there's 5 or 6 people in your virtual bubble. You're not writing 5 or 6 messages or ringing 5 or 6 people. You're just putting out a comment. And I know within my family, we've created a Facebook Messenger group and we just touch base in there. So it's just a quick comment. Hey, how you going? Someone might share a photo of what they're up to, but it means we don't have to spend all that time on the phone or feeling like we need to. So yeah, great to think about what you can work. Oh, Rod. Right, so Rod, that's a comment from Rod about the blog. So yeah, everyone gets the same message. Everyone's had that contact. Yes, and then you can sleep, because sleep is important. And I've noticed, even for myself, I've been needing more sleep. I don't know if the same's been true for you, Zoe. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
Yep. And so, for those of you who are already sick, sleep is incredibly important. Overlay the lockdown virus situation and you'll be needing even more sleep. So protect the time that you need to sleep, to rest, to do whatever it is you need to do to keep yourself healthy and well. And I come back to, it is absolutely okay to set some boundaries and to let people know. It's perfect. I'm seeing some great photos on social media you know, of sort of people putting signs up on doors saying, you know, do not disturb, I'm napping, I'm working, I'm having some quiet time. Like, do what you need to do to take care of yourself, because the better you take care of yourself, we know the less stressed you'll be. So you'll be supporting your immune system better because you're not in that stress state. You're going to be able to think in a more, I guess, thoughtful kind of way rather than reacting and maybe putting on your cranky pants. Yeah, and Dawn's sharing that they've set up a closed Facebook group for closed friends and family. Perfect. Another great way to keep people posted, isn't it? So if you think about your situation, I love to do these. It's kind of like an environmental scan. Go, what's causing me stress? What's draining my energy, consuming my time? What are my priorities? Because your priorities need to come first, because you need to be taking care of yourself. It's true for all of us. We need to be taking care of ourselves. And so just remember, there'll be people who, you know, they, with the best of intentions, they'll be showing up all the time. And part of that's projecting their own fear, their own worry. And so we just need to create some rules. We can see them, acknowledge them, let them know that you appreciate their contact and concern. And here's how you really appreciate it if they could, you know, step back a little bit, maybe jump into a Facebook Messenger group or a closed Facebook group or something. Yeah.
Tracey, there's another question in the Q&A box. And my inner critic comes out when I'm stressed. I'm still working as a call centre rep, hearing people's stories. How do I stop taking their stress on board?
Well, firstly, I acknowledge the important role that you've got in listening to people. And, you know, this was a lesson I learned very early on as a coach, was we can care for people. We can absolutely care for people. And we can do that without taking on all their problems. We can only do what we can do. We're human, and we can only do what we can do. And because remember, most people will first and foremost be looking to be seen, to be acknowledged, to know that they're not alone. So if we can acknowledge them and then work through whatever they're going through. Now remember, you can't fix everything for everyone. And a lot of us that care about people want to. We want to fix everything. But if you view your role as, I need to let this person know that I hear them, that I see them, that I acknowledge them, and I'm hearing that they've maybe got a problem that's causing distress. So, oh, no wonder that's making you quite stressed. Like, we're acknowledging what they're feeling. And then working through a solution, but you're not always going to be able to provide the fix. It might be that part of the solution is you empower the person. You give them some suggestions, because remember, you're going to be more helpful if you aren't getting into the trenches with them and trying to solve it for them. So a common kind of explanation is, like, if someone's stuck down in a hole, there's nothing to be gained from you jumping into the hole with them. You can't help them once you're in there. But if you acknowledge them and say, gee, that's a sticky situation, you're down in that hole, let me get a ladder, or let me find someone who can help. So you become more like a facilitator. You facilitate the resolution. You help them help themselves. And that might be giving some suggestions on who they can talk to, or maybe whoever you work for has some solutions. So sorry, I've shared a whole lot in there because it's such a big topic. So let me see if I can break that down and just recap. You can care without having to dive in and take on board the problem. Okay, because you're going to be much more helpful. And I find this is a really good reframe for people who are natural carers, is you will be more effective in helping the person if you don't dive in and attach yourself to the problem. If you can acknowledge them, if you can see them, and then go, okay, so what can we do here? So you're going to be able to help them so much more. So do you have any tips? Because you're in that sort of role as well, don't you, with helping people?
Yeah, I practice acknowledging what people are saying, because sometimes someone tells you a horrendous story and they don't want you to fix it. They just want you to hear it. And sometimes our friends and family, and we love them so very much, but they don't hear us because we're the sick person and they want to fix everything, and it becomes a job in a way for them. So I think a lot of people need to be heard.
Yeah.
Because we are all someone's daughter or son, mum or dad, and we all ache. And I try and remember that.
Yeah. And that's beautiful. You know, people, as I said, and you've reiterated as well, they want to be seen and heard. And that is the greatest thing we can actually do for someone. It's very natural, and particularly for blokes, but also for women. You know, we want to fix, we want to solve. But actually acknowledging, seeing people is so much more powerful. And when we can kind of step back, so as a coach, I have rituals that I do so that when I'm talking to people, they have my full attention. But then when we're finished, I move to the next person. And that's not because I don't care about them. It's because I trust that the conversation we've had, I've acknowledged them, I've maybe given them some tools, I've empowered them, they know they've got my support, and then I let them take the next step because I can't take the step for them. So if I got consumed by every problem, I probably wouldn't get out of bed, and it's probably a bit like what you might be feeling now, is that it becomes really overwhelming, and then you can't do the very thing that you love. So yeah, acknowledge the person. Your role isn't to fix, it's to acknowledge and to discuss, to look at some options and to empower the person to take the next step. So I think there's another question here that I'm saying. Oh, okay. So Zoe, you might be able to help me out with this as well. So Wayne is sharing that he's really struggling with total neuropathy. So that's when, is it having trouble feeling temperatures?
Yes.
You don't know if I'm hot or cold and it stresses me out. Wow. So Zoe, do you have any tips from you or LBC that might help here?
That would stress me out too. I'm going to get Wayne's info from here too, and then we can give him a call after this as well. Okay. Yeah. Some of it might be around what what our hospital team can do and what medications he's on.
Okay. Great.
But like from the psychosocial part, that could be around what you were saying, Tracey, about breathing. Because if you don't know whether you're hot or cold and you're frustrated, it can be like, I wear natural fibers and I'm not running around like a lunatic today because my temperature is all over the show, or it feels like it is all over the show. So I'm making sure that I'm having soothing drinks. When I'm hot, I've got nice iced water ready for me to drink out of the fridge. When I'm cold and I'm stressed out, I've got a nice warm herbal tea that is soothing and just soothes my soul. Nice cotton clothing, soft clothing. Being really mindful too of what you're doing, because you don't want to hurt your hands and feet. Because if you don't have the sensation as much, you can easily burn yourself. Or if your shoes and socks, aren't well fitting. So there's lots of medical stuff too around that. Okay.
I love that your first point there about that pause and breathe, because it sounds like that would stress me as well. That worry. So great that someone will get in touch and follow that through. But definitely pause and breathe. Pause and breathe. We are so much more resourceful when we just take that moment to go, okay, what's going on here? And some people will say to me, Trace, but I'm really anxious, I'm really stressed. How on earth can I pause and breathe? It takes practice. And you're not going to do it every time. You know, I've been doing this for years and I still miss moments. I go, oh, I missed that one. It's okay. Focus on when you do get it. And you go, okay, I'm going to pause and breathe because I've noticed I've started to work myself up. So I even noticed when I'm doing these sorts of live events, sometimes when I start, I'll feel like I've still got lots of energy. So I'll just slow things down a bit. And I'll pause and I'll just breathe, because then I become so much more resourceful. You can do it at any time. So, you know, we've talked a lot about boundaries and how, you know, some people are being contacted every day, and that's too much. Now, having a conversation with someone around that can be a bit scary. And so your breathing might start to race. So what you do then is just pause and breathe. I'm pausing and breathing. And I'm going to have a conversation. I'm going to share with this person who cares about me that I would prefer it if we had the contact, you know, every couple of days, or we set up a little group or something. So pause and breathe at any time. Anytime. Going for tests, going to the supermarket, you know, anything that's going on. It's a brilliant go-to. I'm just going to scroll through and just see,
because Tracey,
yeah.
while you're scrolling on that on the chat side, I'm going to come back to the question and answer side because we've got another 4 questions here.
Oh, okay, great.
If I do that,
yeah, go.
because you know how you just spoke to about the phone calls. I've got one on the opposite end here. What about the reverse? When you don't feel as though you're getting the calls or messages, you feel isolated, and you seem to be the one doing all the contacting, and makes you feel really unsettled.
Yeah, and that can be really hard, isn't it? Because I know some of the words that come to my mind are, you can feel like, you know, you don't matter, or you're not important, or, you know, you're making all this effort and there's nothing coming back in return. So I'm going to offer a couple of general suggestions around that, because it's going to be dependent on the situation. So I'll use me as an example. So what I learned was that actually some of the reasons people weren't contacting me very early on, like back in my 20s when I was quite sick, was that they said, you just give this air of being strong and capable and like you've got it all together. And we didn't think we should. And I was like, what? Like, that really caught me off guard. So I'm not saying that that's the case for you. I'm just want to share a couple of perspectives. And so what I learned was that I had given this vibe that I had it all under control, and people thought that they would be intrusive, which I found really interesting, because I was the sort of person who would be there first. Like, you know, if something was going on, I'd be there to give. So one might be just to think about the vibe that you're giving off. That might be one thing. And again, no judgment, and not a time to beat yourself up or inner critic. It's just, well, is that in the mix? And it may or may not be. The other thing is, let people know. And you might want to start with someone that you really trust and let them know how you're feeling. And go, I'm really struggling that, and would appreciate it if somebody would connect with me or contact me. So sometimes we actually have to let people know what we need, because they're caught up in their own bubble, in their own world. So I'll give you an example. I was years ago, I was in a meeting, and I was on an executive team, and I was speaking, and the chief executive was like looking across the room like he wasn't even interested. And I thought, oh my gosh, he doesn't care what I have to say. He's not interested in me as a person or my contribution or anything. And I was really upset. And fortunately, I bumped into him in the afternoon. I said, I was really upset. You were ignoring me. What was going on? He goes, Tracey, I was hungry and I was thinking about lunch. It had nothing to do with me. He was hungry and he was thinking about lunch. People have their own stuff going on in their head. And where we think that we're on the top of their mind, we might not be. And it's not because they don't care. It's because they've got stuff going on. So there'll be people who are, you know, really struggling with this current situation, who won't yet have connected the dots to reach out to people to check that they're okay, because they'll be caught up in the stuff that's going on in their head. So it's not that they don't care, it's just that they're lost in their own story. So sometimes we have to let people know that we're hurt because we haven't heard from them. So I want to just give you like a sentence structure for this, because we don't want to say, you made me feel stink, because that's just going to trigger them to feel defensive. They'll feel like they're being attacked. We want to say something like, I'd really like it if you were contacting me every few days to see if I'm okay, because when you don't, I just feel really lonely and isolated. So we're not blaming them, we're just talking about the action and how it makes us feel. So just recap on those points there. One is just check in with the vibe that we're putting out. Have we got this, I'm in control, I've got this, I don't need help from anyone kind of vibe going on? And again, there's no judgment. We don't need to beat ourselves up. You know, it's a behavior. It's just a tendency, and we're just exploring and going, oh yeah, I have been. Just maybe need to ease back and let people know it's okay to help me out. And the other one is to remember that people are probably caught up in their own story and their own stuff, and it doesn't mean they don't care. They just haven't connected the dots. So we need to let them know, I'd really appreciate it if you could reach out and maybe contact me. So I trust that those suggestions help. Anything else you want to throw in there, Zoe?
No, I think you spoke to that beautifully, because I'm the exact same as you, Tracey, with because my mum had been sick, and because I'm a nurse, and because I'm a bit of a control freak, and I love to have my finger on all the pulses all the time. When mum got really crook, my friends didn't check in with me, and I was heartbroken. Why wouldn't my friends check in to make sure I'm doing okay, looking after my mama? And when I did pick up the courage to talk to a few of them and say, hey, I'm really struggling with this, and I just need you to check in with me, which was massive for me to ask. They all went, we are so there. And but because I am a nurse, and I put out that, like what you were talking about, the vibe that I put out, so they were like, oh, we won't ring Zoe, she'll be all over this. So and owning it was quite freeing as well, Tracey, if I'm honest. Beautiful. So I need a bit of a hand. And then all these hands appeared because I had asked. So it was lovely. So thank you. It was beautiful.
Beautiful. So if we just tied in with that, I see Dawn's posted about that some people have withdrawn because they don't know what to say, and they don't know how to deal with the situation or circumstances. And this is so common, isn't it? You know, when we're diagnosed with cancer and people step back, you know, we go through separation or redundancy or the death of a loved one or anything, and all of a sudden people are backing up. And again, sometimes and it seems funny because you think that people could just figure this out for themselves, but sometimes we need to give people permission to say they don't know. And the way we can do that is, you know, maybe there's a particular friend that we really want to have contact with and they've backed off. We can phone them and say, I'm really missing our conversation. And they might then say, I didn't know what to say. And that just opens up the conversation. When we go, I don't know. So I've had friends going through stuff, and literally, you know, obviously because I'm a coach, you know, I know some of these things, and I will just pick up the phone and say, I'm really sorry that you're going through what you're going through, and I don't know what to say. And the relief for both of us is huge because we've opened the gates of the conversation. So sometimes saying, I don't know, is so freeing. And so they'll be scared. They won't want to let you down. They won't want to do the wrong thing or say something that upsets you. Or, and here's another one, particularly when we're diagnosed with something like cancer, the first thought that people will often have after they've gone, shit, that's shit, is they'll think about their own mortality, their own life. And that will scare them. So sometimes when people don't reach out, it's because they're dealing with the stuff in their own head. They get caught up in the, oh my God, what if it was me? I wouldn't cope. And then that spirals out of control. So sometimes we need to find that way to just reach out and make it okay for people to say, I don't know. And for us to say, I don't know as well. So please don't assume that people backing away don't care. They sometimes just don't know, and it's too scary. But we can help them with that. We can say, it's okay not to know. Or actually, I really enjoy our conversations about music. Let's talk about music. And whatever it is for you. So I trust that helps. Yeah. Beautiful comment from Matt. Strong people are some of the most sensitive people and need support. Yeah. And like at times, I was just thinking about this morning when I was on my bike, and I think sometimes when we reach out for help, or actually, I'll say it another way, we don't reach out for help because we think that makes us helpless or hopeless, that we're somehow not capable. But we all need help from time to time, and sometimes we need to ask because people won't necessarily know we need it. So asking for help is a strength. It's not a weakness. It's not a sign of you being hopeless or helpless. It's a sign of strength. Yeah. So someone's sharing that they're a sewer making teddies and quilts. How gorgeous. So lovely, but don't have an incentive to finish things. So that's kind of interesting, isn't it? The incentive to finish things. I wonder what the incentive would be for you to finish things. Who would be the recipient of those teddies and quilts if you were to finish them? What would it feel like to finish those teddies and quilts? How would you feel? And if you are giving those away to someone, how could they feel? So I would tap into your reason, your why, for why you do them. So I'm just chuckling because one of my goals this year was to learn to knit. And so I brought that forward and I've just started to knit. I did some knitting over Easter. And, when you're doing something new, it can be a bit frustrating and you might want to put it down. So what I've realized is learning to knit is really important to me now, because I want to make some scarves, because there are going to be a lot of people who do it really hard over winter now. Given this situation, there's going to be a lot of people who are financially going to struggle. I mean, wow, when I feel myself struggling with the knitting or thinking, oh no, I'll just put that aside for now, I've done it. My why now is that if I keep going with the knitting, I'm going to make some scarves for people who wouldn't otherwise have scarves. And imagine the difference it could make. So connecting to our why, to our motivation, our motive for taking action. So maybe there are some questions you could ask yourself about, why is this important? How will I feel? How will it feel to finish those? And if you're giving them away or selling them or whatever, how will those people feel? Trust those questions help. Right, another fabulous question. Thank you so much for these questions. It makes these sessions, I think, so much more powerful when we're responding to your questions, your comments. Yeah, it's magic. So thank you for helping us create this beautiful session. So yeah, someone's sharing that it's really draining being sick, trying to work from home, and with all the lockdown as well. And so I come back to those techniques, pause and breathe for a minute, because I imagine, and you'll know whether I've got this right or wrong, but I imagine you're probably giving yourself a hard time about needing to do it all, and needing to do it all really well and to a certain standard. Maybe there's a few should statements. I should be feeling better. I should be doing this. I shouldn't be so sleepy. So there's probably a bit of beating up going on, a little bit of self-judgment, and a bit of criticism. So I'd love you to pause and breathe. Write down what you're thinking and feeling, because we can become, I don't want to use the term our own worst enemy, but it's like our own critic, and we pile all this pressure on. The fact is, you are sick and you need to take care of yourself, because if you don't, you're not going to be able to work anyway. So we need to think about the priorities. Your health and well-being is a priority. So I would figure out, if it was me, I would figure out, what do I need to support my health and well-being? What do I need to do? And yep, there's some work in this mix, but I would focus on, what do you need to be healthy and well? So once you know that, it's kind of like, okay, so what's happening with this work? What do I need to be doing? What am I doing because I think it's expected of me, or that people will think I'm not good enough, or that I'm slacking off? All those things that we tell ourselves. So what is it I really need to be doing? And I know it's not possible with every work environment, but it's worth considering. Do you need to reduce your hours? Do you need to just take some time off? Do you need to restructure how you work? Because remember, if you're sick, if you're tired, if you're stressed, you're not going to be effective. So maybe think about, what do I need for my health and well-being? How can I approach work differently? And what am I telling myself about this lockdown? What have I made this lockdown mean? Because even though it's a word like lockdown, if we were to be sitting in a room and I asked everyone to define what lockdown meant, it would bring up different things for different people. So can I notice someone who's usually quite creative? It was like all their creativity had gone out the window. They'd lost their creative mojo. Lockdown to them meant they felt constrained and boxed in and heavy, and like there was just no flow, there was no creative juice there. But the moment we reframed that definition of lockdown and said, actually, you've got this opportunity to get in and like paint or draw or write or whatever it is you want to do to be creative, they went, I'm seeing it a different way, because they reframed the definition of lockdown. So do your impersonal stock take. What do you need to support your health and well-being? Relook at work and think about what you can realistically do at the moment. Next week it might be different, but at the moment, what can you commit to for work? And then what are you telling yourself about lockdown? Is it helpful, or is it making you feel yucky and stressed and squashed and yucky? Can you reframe lockdown? So I trust that that's a view. Oh, these are such good questions and comments, Zoe.
They are, right? I was like, we've gone over time by 6 minutes. Are you all right, Tracey, to finish up this last question?
Yep, absolutely. Oh, I like this one, just while you're looking at your screen. This person learned to crochet while staying at Ranui House in Christchurch. The lessons on YouTube are fantastic. That's where I've been learning to knit, because my mum and my aunt aren't handy. But YouTube videos were amazing. Kept up the repetitive action of each stitch because it is relaxing. And have you noticed that when you're doing this, you're quite mindful. You're noticing the stitches. You're aware of what you're doing, which means you're not out here worrying about the future or the past or anything. You're focused here in this moment. You're being mindful and present. So you're more relaxed. You don't tend to overeat. And listen to a podcast or a free library audiobook. End up with a product that will remind you that you've gone through this. Yeah, beautiful. Yeah. Rod's sharing lockdown is great. Gives you permission to sleep during the day. Fantastic. That's perfect. For me, lockdown's been a great reason to go, what in my business am I ready to let go of? Like, what have I been holding on to that actually I need to change? So we can view this as like this big permission slip to change stuff, to try stuff. Yeah, it's quite cool. Right. So you got a question there as well?
No, sorry, Tracey. I reread it and we've answered that one. I just hadn't picked it off.
Oh, perfect. Well, hopefully we've done all those questions, but look, as per the other sessions, if people, have any questions, ahas, insights, Zoe, are they still emailing those to you, or? Well,
actually, it's just easier, I think, if people email their support coordinator and then we can just collate everything.
Perfect.
So they don't have a new email to learn, Okay.
Oh, see, this is a great example of let's make things easier for ourselves. So if you've got any questions, insights, ahas, anything we've talked about that you want to explore further or want some tips on, email your support coordinator. They're a wealth of information, and I know they care so very much. And look, I'm here as well. So thank you for joining us in this virtual bubble today. This has been incredible, and I'm so grateful. And I don't know if you can tell, but I've got some tears welling up in my eyes because you are such a beautiful community. And I can tell from these comments and your questions that you really want to navigate this as best you can. And there is no rule book. Zoe mentioned this at the start, we haven't lived through a pandemic before, and for you there are added levels of complication, but there's also some things that about self-isolation and hand hygiene, and as Zoe calls the rest of us, we're muggles. We're trying to figure out that as well. But you are doing just so well, and please acknowledge yourself for what you're doing and how well you're navigating your way through this, okay? And I know there'll be things you go, but I'm not doing this well enough. It's like, okay, acknowledge it and then go, so what could I try different? What could I do differently? So thank you so much for tuning in. It's been an absolute pleasure to be here and to answer your questions and share some tips. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Tracey.